Hey there, everybody. This Gemini season, well, we are starting Gemini season, and this Gemini season is pretty heavily loaded with the obvious Gemini energy due to many reasons. But before that, actually, I am getting ahead of myself, and that is one of the things that we need to be mindful about. We may have a lot of things to say, but we may also have a lot of things to listen to. Hence the quote you saw at the beginning of the video. Had I known how listening is superior to speaking, I would not have wasted my life preaching. This is a quote from Attar of Nishapur, the author of a poem. He was a Sufi poet. For those who don't know what Sufism is like the mystic branch of the Islamic religion. So, this poem, this quote is from a poem called "The Conference of Birds." Is essentially a story about the kingdom of the birds gathering together to say, well, every kingdom of men has a king, but we, the birds, we are a kingdom, but we do not have a king. Who's going to be our king? So one of the birds, the hoopoe, jumps in and says, I know who the king of the birds is. It's the simurgh. The simurgh, and I am oversimplifying this here, is kind of like the Persian version of the phoenix. So, long story short, they go into a journey to find the simurgh, their king. And during this journey, they go through the 7 valleys. And the 7 valleys are the 7 stages of acquiring or getting into, acquiring enlightening within the Sufi tradition, as I understood it anyway. So the point is that in the end of the journey, they get to the point where they should have found the simurgh, but they do not find him. And they realize that the author is actually making a little bit of a wordplay there. And I believe that the word simurgh is also similar in sound and kind of has a different meaning, where it means 30 birds. And 30 birds were the amount of birds that actually reached the end of the journey. So the whole point of the poem is to signify that those reaching the end of the journey of enlightenment are actually together as a community, the simurgh. So, the same way as the birds reached the end of the journey, becoming the simurgh as a community, that is one of the main lessons or archetypes or symbolisms that I like about Gemini energy. Gemini, being an earth sign, is like all the 3 Aquarius, Libra, and Gemini. All the earth signs are all about interaction with others, are all about communities, are all about connection with others. All right, so that's why I like that story of the simurgh for the Gemini season. And let's just jump into the cards. As this, like I was saying at first, this Gemini season is very, very loaded with air energy, and we're gonna see why. So, without further ado, welcome. This is me, and this is Hebrew Tarot. So, as you saw in the shuffle, for this season, the main energy is going to be the 8 of Cups, the 7 of Cups, and the Knight of Swords. And well, you're seeing the versions of the on screen. However, I decided to start changing decks every season so I can use a deck a little more aligned with the energy of the season. In this case, we're going to be using the Crow Tarot by MJ Kulinani. I'm not even sure how that's supposed to be pronounced. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, MJ. Anyway, I chose this one because, well, crows, birds, air, Gemini, and crows and ravens I find to be very much Gemini energy for many reasons. Not just because they're birds and they fly and air, but because they can actually imitate sounds to the point of actually speaking some words from the human language. They are very good communicators, and symbolically, they represent communication between the divine and the earthly. So, anyway, for this season, we're going to be having the card of the Hermit. The Hermit is connected to the sign of Virgo. So, Virgo is actually what I call a sibling sign to the sign of Gemini. Why? Because they are both ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication, correspondence, expression, the mind, and they are both two different aspects of the same planet. Gemini, being air, is a more mental planet, and Virgo, being earth, is a more practical one. So let's say that Gemini would be your authors, your communicators, your speakers, your thinkers, and Virgo would be more like, let's say, if they were both scientists, Gemini would be like the theoretical scientist, and Virgo would be like the lab scientist, the one that actually tries to prove the theories elaborated by Gemini. So, for this season, we're having the Eight of Cups, the Seven of Cups, and the Knight of Swords. The Eight of Cups is about growing out of a situation, outgrowing actually a situation emotionally, getting over something, no longer being satisfied with where we are and having to go away from it. But the fact that we have a regression here, in a way, we're going from the Eight of Cups to the Seven of Cups, is asking us to go a little bit of a step back. And why is this? These are cups, so we are to be mindful, ironically, mindful about emotional states. And we have very different kinds of emotions here, right? We have the snake, the heart, this plant or crystal, I'm not even sure what that is. We have a raven skull here. So we have very different kinds of emotions. And one of them is this laurel crown. Laurel, is that actually where it is? Anyway, this is a symbol of victory, which we had in the last season in Taurus with the Six of Wands. So during the last season, we actually achieved an alignment with ourselves, with our Leo energy, with our identity. We were successful in, I don't know, maybe setting boundaries, maybe expressing ourselves authentically. We gained a level of alignment with ourselves during the last season. However, in here, we're being asked to take a step back and see that there are also other people out there with different backgrounds and different paths that are also allowed to express that identity and that individuality. So, why is this going to happen? The day that the sun enters the sign of Gemini is going to be making a trine to the planet Pluto, the planet of transformation, the planet of death, the planet that whenever it enters the sign, the first thing it does is point out everything that is rotten about that sign's energy. Right now, Pluto is in Aquarius. So right now, all of the things in our big societies, Aquarius rules big communities, nations, countries. The same way that Gemini rules smaller communities like your peers, your neighbors, your siblings, your cousins, your schoolmates, Aquarius rules the larger communities. Meaning, well, like I said, countries, maybe your neighborhood, but your neighborhood in large scale, your city, maybe. So, the kind of communities we're a part of that will involve very different natures, very different backgrounds, very different identities, but all of them deserve a place, something very Aquarian. Remember that we are doing the path to the star because the star card is actually ruled by Aquarius. And it is about the identity not just of oneself, but of all the selves. All right? So, why are we taking a step back? Because this process that we learned during Taurus season with the Lovers card, we are getting ready to share it with others, share our light outside with others. However, we are not the only ones. Each and every one of the people around us deserves to do that. So, back to Pluto. When Pluto is in a sign, it points out everything that is wrong with it, especially when it enters. Within the first 10 degrees, what Pluto is going to be doing is pointing out everything that needs to be corrected, that needs to be fixed. So, this trine between the Sun and Pluto in Gemini and Aquarius is going to be pointing out a lot of things from ourselves and everyone around us that needs to be cleaned, to keep it simple. So, this going back or taking a step back from the 8 to the 7 is about judgment, and by judgment I mean whatever situation that you see that you deem not to be right, deem to be incorrect, you're not going to be able to stop yourself from judging, because judgment in the mind, just like the Knight of Swords, is immediate. You don't decide to judge something, but you can decide not to express that judgment. You can choose to give the situation or the person the benefit of the doubt and allow things to unfold a little more so you can have more information and not react according to that judgment that you had. And I would recommend that you do that, because that judgy situation may also apply to you as well. This trine between the Sun and Pluto in air signs, in specifically the two community signs, the little communities with Gemini and the large communities with Aquarius, will be bringing a lot of things out into the light. So, some of those things, some of those judgments might actually apply to ourselves without us realizing yet. And that is why we need to be taking this step back. It's great that we learned and we aligned with our personal Leos in the last season. However, that should not be a reason to be proud, to be cocky. Remember that one of the things we learned was between the difference between the King of Wands and the Nine of Cups, right? So, right now, we need to keep it simple. The Hermit card, as I said, is ruled by Virgo. Virgo does a correction of Leo, of taking off the crown, taking off the cape, keeping the authenticity, keeping the regality, but also seeing how all of that can be of service to others, right? So humility, being humble. All right, so these two cards work as a warning for the impulsivity that can come with the Knight of Swords, right? Be gentle, be patient, be humble. We don't know how some of that judgment can be applied to ourselves as well. And that it's important that we allow others to speak. We remind ourselves to listen, just like the story of, the quote of Attar Nishapur. Had I known how listening is superior to speaking, I would not have wasted my life preaching. So before preaching, let's give a little bit of a listening. All right? I think we're going to leave it up to here right now. Let's see how this Gemini energy is going to unfold later on. We have a lot of very important transits going on, and the next week is actually going to start with the new moon in Gemini, which is also going to be exalting, let's say, that Pluto in Aquarius energy thing. So anyway, we'll get to that next week. For now, all I can do is thank you very much for your time. See you soon.